Hello dear friends and welcome to another lecture of machine design. In the past 3 lectures, we have completed the first chapter of machine design, which is design against static loading, and in that chapter we completed the most important topic, theories of failure, my friend. Now from today's lecture, we are going to start the second chapter of machine design, which is another very interesting chapter, another very important concept, design against fluctuating load. We will understand what is fluctuating load and we will understand some basic concepts related to fluctuating load. Now before I start, those of you who are watching this video for the first time, let me introduce myself. My name is Aprup Rao. I am MTech from IIT Kharagpur. My specialization was mechanical systems design. Then I worked in Mahindra Research Valley, which is the research and development center where the cars and tractors of Mahindra and Mahindra are designed. So I worked there as deputy manager for 2 years, my friend, and my work was basically related to the design and analysis of the body parts of cars. But I quit my job and I started teaching after 2 years, and I've been teaching for more than 6 years now. I have taught thousands of students preparing for GATE and engineering services, and I teach subjects related to design because my work experience is related to design. So I know how to deal with these subjects. So I deal with subjects related to design, strength of material, machine design, engineering mechanics, and theory of machines. I recently completed strength of material for the YouTube channel, my friend. You can find the playlist in our YouTube channel. And we have recently started machine design. We have completed one chapter. We are going to complete the entire syllabus of machine design. I am going to cover as much topics, as many topics as possible. Okay. Now, my friend, if you have not subscribed this channel yet, please go and subscribe the channel because you are going to find live online lectures for every subject of mechanical engineering, and apart from that some amazing content related to mechanical engineering on our YouTube channel. So please go and subscribe, and please like and share this video. If you want me to go on, if you want me to provide as much content as possible, so please like and share these videos with all your friends, my friend, on Facebook, on WhatsApp, on Telegram, wherever it is possible. Now, my friend, apart from our YouTube channel, there is the link of Telegram channel also. We have a Telegram channel. Please follow that channel. The link is in the description of the video. Please follow that channel because we are going to post all the study material, relevant study material related to our lectures on that Telegram channel. So please follow that channel and share the link with your friends also, and ask them to follow the channel because they are going to find some amazing PDFs, amazing content on our Telegram channel. So let's start with the lecture. Now, my friend, the last lecture was interrupted due to some technical issue, so I could not complete the last problem. So we will finish the last problem first, and then we will start with the today's topic, design against fluctuating load. So this was the last problem, my friend. This is the values of stresses at the time of yielding, and you need to find the shear yield stress. You need to find sigma ys. Okay. Now, in order to find sigma ys, what do we need? We need sigma yt using von Mises theory. Okay, it was mentioned in the question that you have to use von Mises theory, and in order to find sigma yt, what do we need? We need principal stresses sigma 1, sigma 2 and sigma 3. Okay, now I told you, my friend, that this plane, this third plane, is a principal plane. I explained it why it is a principal plane, because this shear stress and this shear stress is 0. There is only sigma. So this is the principal plane. So one principal stress we have already found, sigma 3 equals to minus 10. We need sigma 1 and sigma 2. And how will we find it? Using this formula, sigma 1 sigma 2 equals to sigma x plus sigma y by 2 plus minus root over sigma x minus sigma y by 2 whole square plus tau xy square. This is the formula for the principal stresses sigma 1 and sigma 2, my friend. Just put the values in this equation. This is what? this is sigma x, this is what? Sigma y, and this is what? Tau xy. Put the formula, put the values in the formula, and you will get sigma 1 and sigma 2. Okay, so if you put the values and solve it, you will get sigma 1 equals to 22.07 megapascal and sigma 2 equals to 7.93 megapascal. So these are the principal stresses 1 and 2. 3 we have already got. 1 and 2 can be found using the formula. So this much you understand from the last lecture, right? Now what do we need to do? According to von Mises theory, what is the relation between principal stresses and yield stress? What is the relation, my friend? Sigma 1 square plus 2 square plus 3 square minus sigma 1 2 plus 2 3 plus 3 1. This will be equal to sigma yt square. Okay, this is what? Tensile yield stress. Tensile yield stress. We need to find shear yield stress. So first we will calculate sigma yt, then we will find sigma ys. Okay, so put the values in this equation. We have sigma 1, we have sigma 2, we have sigma 3. Put the values here and you will get the value of sigma yt, my friend. Okay, so if you put the values and if you calculate it, you will find sigma yt equals to 27.83 megapascal. According to which theory? Von Mises theory. This was mentioned in the question. Okay, it is a previous year gate question, so it was mentioned that you have to use von Mises theory. So we got sigma yt, but we don't want sigma yt. What do we want? We want sigma ys. So what is the relation between sigma ys and sigma yt according to von Mises theory? In the last lecture we derived this relation, sigma ys equal to 0.577 times of sigma yt. Just put the value here, put the value. So 0.577 times of 27.83. What will you get, my friend? Sigma yt equal to, what will you get? Sigma y, sorry, this will be sigma ys. So sigma ys will be equal to how much? 16.07 megapascal, my friend. This is your answer. This is your answer. So shear yield stress according to von Mises theory will be 16.07 megapascal. This was the last problem. In the last lecture I gave you this problem, and due to some technical problem the lecture was not completed, so that's why I completed the question here. Okay, so if you have understood it, please hit the like button right now, my friend. I told you that the like button is like an online attendance. Okay, so if you are present in my class, please hit the like button and mark your attendance, and don't forget to share the video, my friend. Okay, now my friend, let's begin today's lecture. Let's begin today's topic, the new chapter, the second chapter of machine design, which is designed against fluctuating load. We have designed against static load. In case of static load, how the component is designed, that we have already seen. So in case of static load, the component is designed using theories of failure. But in case of fluctuating load, what theories we will use, that we have to see. Okay, so in the second chapter is known as design against fluctuating load. Design against fluctuating load. Now my friend, if you have not seen the first chapter, design against static load, no problem, you will not have any problem understanding this chapter. Okay, so after this lecture ends, go and find the lectures of static load in the playlist of machine design. Okay, if you have not seen it, no problem. Okay, just attend the lecture, you will understand everything perfectly fine. Okay, now my friend, I told you what is a fluctuating load. What is static load, my friend? If there is static load and you draw stress versus time graph. Okay, in case of static load, what do you get? The stress will always be constant. 100 megapascal is acting, then it will always be 100 megapascal. It will not change. So this is what? Static load. But in case of fluctuating load, what will happen? Fluctuation means it is increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing. So this will happen, my friend. The stresses will fluctuate like this, okay, between a minimum value and a maximum value. Let's say this is sigma minimum, let's say this is sigma maximum, okay. So this is what? Fluctuating load. This is what? Fluctuating load, increasing then decreasing, increasing then decreasing, okay. This is known as one cycle, increasing then decreasing. So this is known as one cycle, okay. This is also one cycle. So how many cycles do we have? 2 cycle. How many cycles do we have here on this graph? 2 cycle. One cycle, then one cycle, okay. Now my friend, there are some parameters related to fluctuating stress. Let's understand those parameters, okay. Now my friend, the first parameter that you need to understand is mean stress. Mean stress. So what is mean stress, my friend? Mean stress is simply average. Mean means simply average, okay. So it is the center line of sigma minimum and sigma maximum. This is sigma minimum, this is sigma maximum. So it will be at the center. It will be at the center. This will be sigma m, okay. This much will be sigma m, okay, center. So what will be the equation, my friend? What will be the equation? Sigma m will be equal to sigma maximum plus sigma minimum by 2. This will be the equation of sigma m. You have to put the stress with the sign. If the stresses are tensile, both will be positive. If let's say sigma max is tensile, minimum is compressive, so this will be positive, this will be negative, okay. So you have to put sigma with the sign. Here I am assuming both are tensile, my friend, okay. Here I am assuming minimum is also tensile, maximum is also tensile, but it can be compressive also, okay. So sigma m will be sigma maximum plus sigma minimum by 2. This is what? Mean stress or average stress, center between maximum and minimum. The second parameter is known as stress amplitude. Stress amplitude, which is denoted by sigma a. Now what is stress amplitude, my friend? See, this stress is fluctuating above and below the average, right? Above, it is going above the center and below the center. So how much it is fluctuating, how much it is going above and how much it is going below, that is stress amplitude, my friend. So what will be stress amplitude? This will be stress amplitude. This is the center, okay, this is the center and it is going above the center by this much. Then this is the stress amplitude. Now what will be stress amplitude, my friend? What will be the equation of stress amplitude? Sigma a will be equal to, this is sigma a, this is sigma m, and this complete is sigma maximum. So sigma a will be sigma maximum, okay, this much is sigma maximum minus sigma m, okay, sigma maximum minus sigma m. So it will be how much? Sigma maximum minus that value, sigma maximum plus sigma minimum by 2, okay. Sigma maximum minus this much, this is sigma maximum and this is sigma m. So sigma maximum minus sigma m, you will get sigma a. So this will be sigma a, and if you solve it, what will you get, my friend? If you solve this equation, what will you get? Sigma maximum minus sigma maximum by 2. What will you get? Sigma maximum by 2, and this will become minus sigma minimum by 2. So you will get this sigma maximum minus sigma minimum by 2. So do you understand? Mean stress means average value, average of maximum and minimum. Stress amplitude means how much it is going above the center and below the center, above the average and below the average. So this is stress amplitude, my friend, okay. Now there are two other parameters, my friend. There are two other parameters. The next one is stress ratio, denoted by R. So what is stress ratio, my friend? Stress ratio is denoted by, is given by sigma minimum divided by sigma maximum. R will be equal to sigma minimum divided by sigma maximum. This is what? stress ratio. Now my friend, the second ratio is known as amplitude ratio. Amplitude ratio. These two are ratios, stress ratio, amplitude ratio. And what is amplitude ratio, my friend? Amplitude ratio is sigma A by sigma M. Amplitude ratio is sigma A by sigma M. If you put the values sigma A by sigma M and solve it, you will get this 1 minus R divided by 1 plus R. If you put the values of sigma A and sigma M in this equation and solve it, you will get this 1 minus R by 1 plus R. So you have to remember these four parameters: mean stress, stress amplitude, stress ratio, amplitude ratio. Out of these four, these two are not used in design. They are just to define the fluctuating stress. These two are just used to define the fluctuating stress, but these two are used in the design equation. We use sigma M and sigma A in the design equation. Okay, so they are very important from design point of view. So this is what fluctuating stress, my friend. Fluctuating stress means it is fluctuating between minimum and maximum value, increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing. Okay, now my friend, there are two special cases of fluctuating stress. Okay, there are two special cases of fluctuating stress. Let's see those two special cases. So one of these special cases is known as repeated stress. Repeated stress. Now what is repeated stress, my friend? What is repeated stress? Let's say the minimum stress is 0. Okay, sigma minimum is 0 and the stress is fluctuating from 0 to a maximum value. Okay, this is sigma maximum, this is 0 and sigma maximum. So this is known as repeated stress. Okay, it is repeated from 0 to maximum, 0 to maximum, 0 to 100, then 0, then 100, then 0, then 100, then 0, then 100. So it is repeated stress. Okay, now my friend, what will be a practical example of repeated stress? Practical example of repeated stress. For example, let's say for example that you are opening and closing the door of a car. Okay, you are opening and closing the door of a car, then it will be subjected to repeated stress. Okay, you are loading, then unloading, loading, then unloading. So loading, unloading, loading, unloading, whenever it happens, then it is an example of repeated stress. Okay, loading, at the time of loading there will be some stress, at the time of unloading the stress will become 0. So loading 0, loading 0, loading 0. So it is repeated stress. Okay, now what will be the value of sigma M here? What will be the value of sigma M here, my friend? Sigma minimum is 0. Put sigma minimum 0. So sigma M will be sigma maximum by 2 and sigma A will also be sigma maximum by 2. Sigma M and sigma A both will be equal to sigma maximum by 2. So this is what? Repeated stress. Okay, first special case, repeated stress. Okay, now my friend, there is another special case which is very important to understand, because you will find some theory question from this second case, my friend. This second case, which is very important from design point of view also, is known as completely reversed stress. Okay, it is the second case, a second special case, completely reversed stress. Very important to understand, my friend, very important to understand. So focus here. Okay, what is completely reversed stress? Okay, let's say this is plus sigma, this is minus sigma, and this is time. Okay, so what is completely reversed stress? Let's say the stress is fluctuating from minimum and maximum value, and both minimum and maximum value are equal. Means let's say stress is fluctuating from minus 100 to plus 100, minus 100 to plus 100, minus 100 to plus 100. Then it is known as completely reversed stress. So what does it mean, my friend? If this is sigma maximum, if this is sigma maximum, then this will be how much? This will be how much? Minus sigma maximum. If this is plus 100, then this is minus 100. If this is plus 200, then this is minus 200. Then that is known as completely reversed. Completely reversed. Okay. So minus sigma maximum to plus sigma maximum. Okay. So this is completely reverse stress. Now my friend, in this case, what will be sigma m? What will be the center, my friend? Minus sigma plus sigma. What is the center? Simple. Center will be 0 because sigma minimum is minus of sigma maximum. So if you add these two, average will be 0. So sigma m in this case, sigma mean in this case is equal to 0. And what will be sigma a, my friend? What is sigma a? How much it is going above the center or below the center, right? So how much it is going above the center? Sigma maximum. This is your stress amplitude, right? This is your stress amplitude. This one. How much it is going above the average? So it is going by sigma maximum. So sigma a here will be sigma maximum. So these are sigma m and sigma a in case of completely reverse stress, my friend. Now it is very important to understand practically where we will get completely reverse stress. Practically, what is an example of completely reverse stress? So let me give a practical example, my friend. Okay, let me give a practical example. Okay, so let's say you have an axle. Let's say you have an axle. What is an axle, my friend? Axle is also like a shaft. Axle is also like a shaft, but there is a difference between shaft and axle. Shaft is subjected to torque. Shaft is used to transfer torque, but axles just rotate. They are not subjected to torque. Okay, axles just rotate. They are not subjected to torque. They are not transferring any power. They are just rotating. They are not transferring power. There will be torque if you are transferring power. If it is subjected to power, then it is subjected to torque. But if it is not transferring power, no torque. It is just simply rotating. There is no torque. It is just simply rotating. There is no torque. So axle is rotating, but it is not subjected to torque. Now, my friend, let's say these are the bearings. Okay, let's say these are the bearings. Bearings are supports. Okay, so bearings are supports. So let's say there is one bearing here, one bearing here. It is supported. And let's say there is a load acting on the axle. Okay, let's say there is a load acting on the axle. So due to this load, what will happen to the axle, my friend? The axle will bend. The axle will bend like this, right? Let's say this is the cross section of axle. What is this? Cross section of the axle, circular cross section. Okay, this is the neutral axis. Okay, so axle is subjected to load. So due to that load, it is bending. At the bottom, the stress will be tensile. At the top, the stress will be compressive. Okay, so at the bottom, let's say there is a point. Let's say at the bottom there is a point P. Okay, right now, what is the stress at point P? What is the stress at point P, my friend? What is the stress at point P? It will be equal to plus sigma maximum, right? It will be maximum, and it will be tensile. So plus sigma maximum. Bending stress, it is subjected to bending stress plus sigma maximum. Do you understand this? At point P, which is at the bottom, the stress will be maximum and it will be tensile. So plus sigma max. Now, my friend, you are rotating the axle. You are rotating the axle. The axle is rotating. Okay, it is not static, it is rotating. So what will happen, my friend? This point P will rotate. Okay, this point P will rotate, and let's say it comes to this point P dash. Okay, earlier it was here. Earlier this particle was here. Now the same particle has reached to here on the neutral axis. So what will be the stress at this point, my friend? What will be the stress at this position? 0. Why? Because now this P point, due to rotation, has reached to neutral axis, and at neutral axis stress is 0. At bottom stress is sigma maximum, but at neutral axis stress is 0. But it will not stop. It will again rotate, and where it will reach? At the top, P double dash. What will be the stress at P double dash, my friend? What will be the stress at P double dash? Again it will become sigma max, but this time the stress will be compressive, minus sigma max. Now my friend, it will again rotate and it will again come to this point, P triple dash, means the stress will again become 0. Then it will again rotate and it will reach here. So this point is continuously rotating. So sometimes it becomes at bottom, sometimes it reaches at top, sometimes it reaches at bottom, sometimes it reaches at top. So the stress at this particular particle is fluctuating, minus sigma maximum to plus sigma maximum, minus sigma maximum to plus sigma maximum, minus sigma maximum plus sigma maximum, minus sigma maximum plus sigma maximum. Do you understand this point? Do you understand this point, my friend? How the stresses are fluctuating at this particular point? Do you understand that? It is at the bottom, but it will rotate and it will reach to top. Then again it will rotate and it will reach to bottom. Then it will rotate and reach to top. So what is the practical example of completely reverse stress? Axles subjected to bending. Axles subjected to bending. They are subjected to bending and they are continuously rotating. So the stresses at any point will fluctuate from minus sigma maximum to plus sigma maximum. Do you understand that? So this is a practical example of completely reverse stress, my friend. If you have understood and if you have still not liked this video, this is not fair, my friend. Please hit the like button right now. Hit the like button and share this video with all your friends, my friend. We need maximum gathering. We need maximum gathering. We need to reach to lot of students, my friend, because this is completely free of cost education. So we need to reach maximum number of students so that everyone will be benefited. Everyone will get the benefit of these videos. Do you understand that? So please keep sharing these video, my friend. Keep sharing this video. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my friends. All right. Now we have understood what is fluctuating stress. What are the different cases of fluctuating stress? Okay. Now, my friend, a very important point to understand: how material fails under fluctuating stress. How material fails under fluctuating stress. Okay, what is the failure mechanism? How the material is going to fail under fluctuating stress, that we need to understand. So under static load, how the material fails? If there is static load, how the material will fail? It will fail either due to yielding. Under static load, the material will either fail due to yielding. Yielding means plastic deformation. So if there is plastic deformation, we will assume that the material has failed. And brittle material, it will fail due to fracture. So under static load, the material will either fail due to yielding or it will fail due to fracture. When will you get yielding, my friend? When your sigma maximum will become equal to SYT. When your sigma maximum will become equal to SYT, it will fail due to yielding. The material will fail due to yielding. And when material will fracture, if your sigma max becomes equal to SUT, then the material will fracture. Okay. So these are the two failures under static load. Okay, these are the two failure under static load. This is failure. We are talking about failure, how the material will fail. So under static load, it will fail either due to yielding or due to fracture. But under fluctuating load, how the material fails? Under fluctuating load, how the material fails? Under fluctuating load, the material fails due to fatigue. Under static load, it fails due to yielding or fracture. Under fluctuating load, it fails due to fatigue. Now, what is fatigue? Let's understand that. What is fatigue? Let's understand that. Okay. Let's say This is your metal body. You want to break this metal body. Okay, your ultimate objective is to break this metal plate. Okay, ultimate objective is to break this metal plate. And let's say you want to break this by applying static load. Okay, I'm applying a static load. Okay, I'm applying a static load means I am applying load only once. Static load means what? You're applying load only once. Fluctuating load means what? You're applying load repeatedly. Okay, this is load repeatedly and this is load only once. So if you want to apply load only once and you want to break this metal component, then how much stress do you need to apply? How much stress? If you want to break this by applying static load, how much stress do you need to apply? Equal to SYT, and SYT of steel is very high. SYT of steel is very high. Sorry, SUT. Sorry. We need to break it. So SUT. So SUT of steel is very high. So we need to apply very high amount of static load. Okay, if I want to apply static load and I want to break it, then I have to apply stress equal to SUT, which is very high. But if you want to break it applying fluctuating load, then you don't have to apply this much stress. In this case, you can break this by applying less stress. In this case, sigma maximum don't has to be SUT. It does not have to be equal to SUT or SYT. Sigma max will be less than SYT or SUT and still it will fail. Still it will fail. How? What I will do? I will apply very small amount of load. I will apply small amount of stress, but I will repeatedly apply it. I will apply it, then remove it, apply it, then remove it, apply it, then remove it, apply it, then remove it. Then what will happen, my friend? After some number of cycles, this is one cycle. I applied load, removed it, applied load, removed it, applied load, removed it. Okay. So what is this number of cycle? So after some number of cycle, what will happen? It will break, my friend. If you are applying load only once, static load, then you have to apply very high amount of load equal to SUT. Stress will be equal to SUT under static load. Load only once. But in case of fluctuating load, I am applying repeated load. I am applying load repeatedly. I am applying load, then removing it. Load, remove, load, remove, load, remove. So I am doing it again and again and again. So after some number of cycle, it will fail, even though the stress is very less. Even though the stress is very less, but it will still fail. Why? Due to the repetition. You are applying the load repeatedly, again and again and again and again. So due to repetition, it will fail, and that failure, my friend, is known as fatigue failure. Do you understand this, my friend? Do you understand this? So if you want to break a metal component by applying static load, then the stress has to be equal to SUT. But here the stress will be less than SUT, but it will still fail, my friend. It will still fail. Why? Due to repetition. Due to repetition. So what is fatigue failure? What is fatigue failure, my friend? Let me give you an definition of fatigue failure. Write down the definition of fatigue failure. Okay, note this down. What is fatigue failure? Fatigue failure is the failure of material due to repetition of stress. Due to repetition of stress at a level less than SYT or SUT. At a level less than SYT or SUT, my friends. What is fatigue failure? Failure of material due to repetition of stress less than SYT or SUT. Here the stress is less than SYT or SUT, but it will still fail. Why? Because it is repeated. Here it is not repeated. Here the stress is applied only once. So how much stress do you need to apply to fail the material? How much stress? Either SYT or SUT. Here the stress is less than SYT or SUT, but it is repeated. It is not applied once. It is repeated. So due to repetition, it is failing. So that is the example of fatigue failure. You might have done it, my friend. Whenever you need to break a wire, okay, let's say you need a small piece of wire. Okay, so what do? If you have a very large piece of wire, you have to break it. How do you break it? You load, unload for some number of cycle, and the metal wire breaks. That is fatigue failure. Why? Because the failure took place due to repetition of stress. Okay, you are applying less stress, but you are repeating it again and again. So that's why the component fails. So this is known as fatigue failure. So do you understand what is fatigue failure, my friend? Under static load, there are two failure, yielding and fracture. But under fluctuating load, the failure is known as fatigue failure. Do you understand this? Do you understand this? So in case of fatigue failure, two things are important. How much stress you are applying and how many number of cycles you are applying. Okay. If you are applying large amount of stress, then it will break at small number of cycle. Let's say I am applying 300 megapascal. Okay, let's say I am applying 300 megapascal. Then it will fail for less than, let's say, 10,000 cycle. At 10,000 cycle, it is failing. Okay, I am applying 300 megapascal. After 10,000 cycle, it will fail. Now, if I reduce the stress, let's say I am applying 200 megapascal, then I have to apply more number of cycle. So less sigma maximum. If you are applying less stress, then number of cycle will be more number of cycles. Okay, less stress, more number of cycle. More stress, less number of cycle. So do you understand? The relation between sigma maximum and number of cycle? Sigma maximum is inversely proportional to number of cycle. If sigma maximum is large, number of cycles are less. If sigma maximum is less, number of cycles will be more, my friend. Do you understand the relation, my friend? Do you understand? Okay, so two things are important. How much stress you are applying and for how many number of cycle you are applying. Okay, all right, my friend. Now, my friend, in case of in case of static loading, we have two strengths, SYT and SUT, right? In case of static loading, the strength of material means at what stress it will fail. It is given by either SYT or SUT. But in case of fatigue, the strength of material is known as endurance strength, which is denoted by SE. So yield strength and ultimate strength, they are under static load. They are the strength under static load. SYT, SUT, they are strength under static load. Endurance strength is strength under fluctuating load. This is the strength of material under fluctuating load. Now, what is the definition of endurance strength? Very important to understand. What is the definition of endurance strength? Okay, so note this definition down. It is the maximum value of completely reversed stress. It is the maximum value of completely reversed stress which a material can sustain. For infinite number of cycles. Without failure. Do you understand this? Let's read it, my friend. Endurance strength is the maximum value of completely reversed stress. It is the maximum value of completely reversed stress which a material can sustain for infinite number of cycles without failure. Now let me explain it using a graph. Okay, let's say you have a machine element. You are applying completely reverse stress. Okay, let's say you have a machine element, you are applying completely reverse stress. Okay, I gave you this example, right? I gave you the example of axle. It is subjected to bending and it is continuously rotating. So completely reverse stress. Completely reverse stress means plus minus sigma. And let's say this is number of cycle. Okay, number of cycles at which it will fail. These are the number of cycle at which it will fail. So here plus minus sigma, here number of cycle. Now my friend, let's say initially it is failing at plus minus 500 megapascal and 10,000 cycle. Okay, let's say it is failing at plus minus 500 megapascal and the number of cycle are, let's say, 10,000. Okay, 10,000, sorry, 10,000 means 10 to the power 4. Okay, now my friend, if the stress is reduced, let's say now I am applying plus minus 400 megapascal. So what will happen to the number of cycle? They will increase. The number of cycle will increase. I told you what is the relation between stress and number of cycle. More stress, less cycle. Less stress, more cycle, right? Now again decrease the stress, again decrease the stress. So what will happen? Number of cycle will again increase. Okay. Now my friend, there will be a point when the number of cycle will become infinity. The number of cycle will become infinity. Means after this stress, this component will never fail. Above this stress, the component will fail, the material will fail after some number of cycle. But below this stress, the material will never fail. This stress at which number of cycle become infinite is known as endurance strength. For example, let's say endurance strength is 200 megapascal. Let's say the endurance strength of a material is 200 and I am only applying 150. Let's say the material has endurance strength 200 and I am applying plus minus 150. Then it will never fail. Why? Because 150 is less than the endurance strength. So it will never fail. It will sustain infinite number of cycle. If I am applying less than endurance strength, never fail. Less than endurance strength means infinite cycle. But if I apply more stress, if I apply, let's say 300 megapascal, the strength is 200 but I am applying 300, then what will happen? Then it will fail after some number of cycle. It will fail, let's say 10,000 cycle, 20,000 cycle, 50,000 cycle. Okay, so if the stress is more than endurance strength, it will fail. If the stress is less than endurance strength, it will never fail. Do you understand that? If the stress is more than endurance strength, it will fail, and if the stress is less than endurance strength, it will never fail. It will sustain the stress for infinite number of cycle. My friend, this is the graph of steel. This is the graph of steel, and this graph becomes horizontal, means the stresses become, the number of cycle becomes infinite after 10 to the power 6 cycle. After 10 to the power 6 cycle. So if cycles are greater than or equal to 10 to the power 6, then we call it infinite life. Okay, then we say that what is the life? Infinite life. It will never break. If your number of cycle are 10 to the power 6 or greater than 10 to the power 6, means it will never fail. But if cycles are less than 10 to the power 6 cycle, means finite life. Finite life means it will fail at some time, at some point of time it will fail. After some number of cycle it will fail. So do you understand, my friend? What is the meaning of 10 to the power 6 for steel? For steel. Okay, for different material this number will be different. So for steel, if the cycles are more than 10 to the power 6, infinite life. If cycles are less than 10 to the power 6, finite life. Do you understand this? What is the meaning of infinite life and finite life? Finite life means it will break. Ultimately it will break. Infinite life means it will never break. It will never break. No, doesn't matter how many times you apply the stress, it will never fail. Okay, so do you understand? This is the graph for steel, my friend. Okay, at 10 to the power 6, the graph becomes horizontal like this. So this stress at which this becomes horizontal is known as endurance strength. So if your stress is less than endurance strength, infinite life. Stresses are more than endurance strength, finite life. It will fail. Okay, understand the meaning of endurance strength. It is the maximum value of completely reverse stress which a material can sustain for infinite number of cycles. Do you understand the meaning of endurance strength? Do you understand the meaning of endurance strength? Very good, my friend. Now, my friend, let's understand how endurance strength is found. How do we find endurance strength? How do we find endurance strength? How do we find endurance strength? So, my friend, how do we find endurance strength? There is an estimated value. There is an estimated value or approximate value. Estimated or approximate value. Estimated or approximate value of endurance strength. How much is this? How much is this? Approximate value of endurance strength is 0.5 times of ultimate strength for steel. Okay, for steel, what is the relation between endurance strength and ultimate strength? It is 0.5 times. Okay, this is just an approximated value. It is just an estimated value. It is not actual value, just an estimated. Let's say you don't have the value of SE, but you have the value of SUT, then you can use this relation. You can use this relation. Okay, let's say the material is not steel, then this value will be different. So it is 0.4 SUT for cast iron. For cast iron, which is a brittle material, it is 0.4 times of SUT, and it is 0.3 times of SUT for non-ferrous alloys. Non-ferrous alloys. What is non-ferrous alloy or non-ferrous material, my friend? It is not made of iron, my friend. For example, aluminum alloy. Let's say you have an aluminum alloy, then for that alloy it will be equal to 0.3 times of SUT. These relations are just approximate relations. Okay, approximate relations. When do we use them? When we don't have the actual value, then we can use them. Okay, for a material, let's say you don't have the actual value, then you can use these approximate relations. Okay, but these are just approximate values. Okay, these are not exactly equal to actual. Now, my friend, how to find the actual value? So for that, what we need to perform? We need to perform test. We need to perform test. So experimental value. How the experimental value is calculated? Experimental value means by experiment we will find this value. And which type of experiment, which type of test is done, my friend? In order to find SUT and SYT, which stress do we perform? We perform simple tension test, right? We perform simple tension test and we draw stress strain diagram, right? But in case of SE, endurance strength, which test do we perform? We perform rotating beam test or rotating beam experiment. Okay, we perform rotating beam experiment. So how the value of SE is found using experiment? Using the rotating beam experiment. Let's understand what is rotating beam experiment. Okay, so in case of rotating beam experiment, we have a specimen like this. Okay, we have a specimen like this. Okay, it is different than simple tension test. The size and shape will be different than simple tension test. Okay, so we have this specimen. We have this specimen. Okay, let's say these are bearings. Okay, let's say these are bearings. Bearings are used to support rotating bodies. Okay, bearings are types of supports used to support rotating body. Okay, so this is rotating. This is going to be rotated. Okay, let's say there is a motor here. Okay, let's say there is a motor here. So due to this motor, it will rotate. Okay, so it is continuously rotating and I am applying a load. So due to this load, what will happen? Due to this load, it will bend and it is rotating. I gave you an example. There is bending and there is rotation. So which stress will you get? Completely reverse stress. You will get completely reverse stress, my friend. Do you understand this? Do you understand this? Completely reverse stress. So we will apply load and we will rotate it. Okay, and then what will we do? We will plot the graph. We will plot this graph. We will plot this graph. and then we will see at which point we are getting 10 to the power 6 cycle. So that will be your endurance strength. So here we will not plot stress strain graph. Here we will plot stress versus number of cycle graph. Stress versus number of cycle graph, and we will plot this graph, and the point at which it will become 10 to the power 6, at the point at which the stress cycle will be 10 to the power 6, at that point the stress will be equal to SE. So this is known as rotating beam experiment. This is known as rotating beam experiment, my friend. Okay. So do you understand the rotating beam experiment? Now, my friend, the length of this specimen, is equal to 85 mm. Okay, the length of the specimen is equal to 85 mm. Minimum diameter, you can see that the cross section is not constant. Minimum diameter, it is circular cross section. Minimum diameter is 7.5 mm. Minimum diameter 7.5 mm, and the surface is mirror polished. Surface is mirror polished. What is mirror polish, my friend? Mirror polish means there are no scratches, there is no roughness, there are no scratches on the surface of this specimen. There is no roughness, there are no scratches. Okay, it is completely plain. It is like mirror. It is like the surface of mirror. Okay, so it is mirror polished. Okay, so we have a specimen of length 85, diameter, minimum diameter 7.5, and the surface of this specimen is mirror polished, my friend. After applying this load, we will plot this graph and we will find the endurance strength. Do you understand this much? Do you understand this much? Now, my friend, whatever value we are getting from this experiment, that is also not the actual value. That is also not the actual value. Understand this. That is also not the actual value. Okay. For example, let's say you have found the endurance strength SE from experiment. Okay. From experiment, you have found the value of SE. Let's say it is 300 megapascal for steel. Okay, let's say you have found the SE value of a material and it is 300 megapascal. Now, my friend, you are making two bodies of that material, same material. Okay, you are making two body. One plate is this, there is no hole. One plate is this, there is a hole. Then, my friend, the actual value of endurance strength for this will be different. Let's say it is 250, and for this it will be different. Let's say it is 200. For material, the material is same. Okay, but the endurance strength, actual endurance strength for this plate it will be different, and for this plate it will be different. Okay, so what does it mean? That the endurance strength that we calculate from experiment is not a fixed value. It is not a fixed value. For every component, for every element, it will be different, my friend. For every element it will be different. So whatever value we are getting from experiment, let's say it is SE dash. Okay, whatever value we are getting from experiment, let's say it is SE dash. Actual endurance strength of machine. Okay, actual endurance strength of machine element SE is always less than SE dash. Whatever value we are getting from experiment, actual value will always be less than that. Let's say the value of SE from experiment is 300, then actual value will be 100, 150, 200, 250, but it will never be is equal to or greater than SE dash. It will always be less than SE dash. Do you understand this? It is always less than SE dash. Maximum it can be equal to SE dash, but it will never be greater than SE dash. It will always be less than or equal to SE dash. Do you understand this? Now, my friend, actual value of endurance strength depends upon a lot of factors. It depends upon a lot of factors. So SE is equal to Ka into Kb into Kc into Kd into SE dash. What are these? These are different factors. These are different factors upon which this value is dependent. Okay, this is the value from experiment. This is the value from experiment. Then we multiply different factors and we get the actual endurance strength. Do you understand this? This is the actual and this is from experiment. This is the actual value. This is from experiment. Okay, so actual value is less than this experiment value. And how will we find the actual value? By multiplying these factors. Okay, now one by one we will understand what are these factors. Okay, let's understand what are these factors. So the first factor Ka, the first factor Ka is known as, the first factor Ka is known as surface finish factor. The first factor Ka is known as surface finish factor. Now what is surface finish factor, my friend? I told you that in case of experiment, the surface of the specimen is mirror polished. The surface of the specimen is mirror polished. Okay, but my friend, every machine element will not have mirror polished surface. Every machine element will not have mirror polished surface. For example, look at this body. Look at this body. The surface is rough. The surface is rough. So for this, the value of Ka will be less than 1. For mirror polished surface, for mirror polished surface, for mirror polished surface, Ka will be equal to 1. For mirror polished surface, Ka will be equal to 1, and for rough surface, Ka will be less than 1, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, depending upon how rough the surface is. If it is too rough, if it is very rough, then it will be very less than 1. If it is somewhat smooth, then it will be less than 1, 0.9, 0.95, like that. Okay, so it depends upon the roughness, how rough your surface is. Okay, now why the surface reduces the endurance strength? Why the surface roughness reduces the endurance strength? Due to scratches, my friend. Okay, if there are scratches on the surface, then the endurance strength reduces, and this I will explain later. Why the scratches reduces the endurance strength, I will explain later, my friend. Okay, so do you understand this point? The surface roughness decides the value of endurance strength. Okay, the surface roughness will also decide the value of endurance strength. In case of specimen, the surface is mirror polished. In case of specimen, the surface is mirror polished. Okay, very smooth surface, no scratches, no roughness, no scratches. So for that surface, Ka is equal to 1. But if there are scratches, if there is roughness, then Ka will be less than 1, 0.9, 0.8, 0.7, depending upon the roughness. Do you understand this? Okay, my friend. Now the second factor, Kb, the second factor Kb is known as size factor. The second factor Kb is known as size factor. Now what is size factor, my friend? If the size increases, endurance strength reduces, my friend. If the size increases, endurance strength reduces. Okay, so for specimen, what is the minimum size? What is the minimum size for specimen? 7.5 mm, right? The minimum diameter is 7.5 mm. Now the actual diameter of any element will be greater than 7.5, right? So if it is greater than 7.5, means the size is increasing, so endurance strength will decrease. So if size increases, okay, 7.5 is your minimum value. Okay, 7.5 is your minimum value. If the size increases more than 7.5, then Kb will decrease, and if Kb is less, then Se will also be less. If Kb decreases, if any factor decreases, Se will also decrease. So Se will decrease. Se will also decrease. Do you understand this? It is a very important point, my friend. You will find a theory question based on this. You will find a theory question. If the size increases, what happens to endurance strength? So if the size increases, endurance strength reduces. Do you understand this? If the surface roughness is, if the surface is rough, endurance strength will reduce. If the size is more, endurance strength will reduce. Do you understand this? Do you understand this? Very good, my friend. Now, the third factor, Kc. So what is the third factor, my friend? Kc. Kc is known as reliability factor. Kc is known as reliability factor. Now, my friend, very important point. What is reliability? What is reliability? Okay. Let's say I say that this component will fail at 200 megapascal. Let's say I'm saying this component will fail at 200 megapascal. Okay. Now, how much reliable this information is to you? How much reliable this information is to you? Let's say it fails at 150 megapascal. I am saying that it will fail at 200, but it is failed at 150. Means it is not reliable. It is not reliable, right? So what is reliability, my friend? If I am telling you that it will fail at this much stress, that it should fail at that stress. It should not fail below that stress. Otherwise, it will not be reliable. Otherwise, the strength will not be reliable. Okay. So what is reliability, my friend? If let's say I am saying that this material can sustain 200 megapascal. Now you made 10 components. Okay. You made 10 components of that material. Okay. Let's say we have this 5 components made of same material, and I am saying that all this will fail at 200 megapascal. Okay. All these are made of same material, and I am saying they will all fail at 200 megapascal. Now I am applying the load, and out of these 5, 2 fail at less than 200 megapascal. The 3 will sustain 200, but 2 are failing at less than 200 megapascal. Okay. So what is your reliability, my friend? Out of 5, 2 failed, right? Out of 5, 2 failed. So your reliability is 60%, because 40% material fail. 40% material is failed. 60% material pass. 60% component pass. 40% fail. So the reliability is 60%. Okay. Let's say you are making 100 components. Let's say you are making 100 components. Okay, I tell you that the strength is 200, but out of 100, 10 will fail less than 200. 10 will fail at less than 200 megapascal. So what is the reliability? 90%, because 90% are safe, but the 10% fail. So what is the reliability, my friend? Reliability will be 90%. So what is the reliability factor? In case of experiment, whatever value you are getting, it is only reliable 50%. Okay. The reliability is only 50%. So for 50% reliability, whatever value we are getting from experiment, how reliable it is? 50%. There is a 50-50% chance that it will be safe or it will fail. 50-50%. Okay. So for experiment, the reliability is 50%. So for 50% reliability, Kc will be 1. For 50%, if you need 50% reliability, Kc will be 1. Okay, but if you need more reliability, let's say I need 80% reliability or 90% reliability. I don't want 50% components to fail. I want, if I am making 100, I want only one material to fail, one component to fail. The 99 should be safe. So what reliability do I need? I need 99% reliability. So in that case, Kc will be less than 1. If reliability increases, if you need more reliability, for 50% reliability, Kc will be 1. But if you need more reliability, Kc will decrease. It will be less than 1. Do you understand this? What is reliability? 50% reliability means if I am manufacturing 100 components, 50% will be safe, 50% will fail. That is 50% reliability. So if you are okay with 50% reliability, Kc will be equal to 1. But if you need more reliability, Kc will be less. If you want 20% to fail, 80% should be safe. Then how much reliability do you need? 80% reliability. So your reliability is increasing. So Kc will decrease, and if Kc will decrease, endurance strength will decrease. Do you understand this point? Do you understand this point? Very good, my friend. So this is reliability factor. The fourth factor, Kd, is known as modified stress concentration factor. Modified stress concentration factor. The fourth factor is modified stress concentration factor, KD, my friend, which is equal to 1 by Kf. And what is Kf, my friend? It is known as fatigue stress concentration factor. It is known as fatigue stress concentration factor. Now, my friend, what is stress concentration? That is a completely different topic. What is stress concentration? That is a completely different topic, my friend. So, this topic, stress concentration, I will explain after this. Okay, I will explain after this what is stress concentration. For now, you only need to understand this. KD is modified stress concentration factor and KD is equal to 1 by Kf, where Kf is what? Fatigue stress concentration factor. So do you understand this? Do you understand this topic, my friend? The value which you are getting from the experiment, it is not the actual value. Actual value is always less than this value, and actual value will depend upon all these things. What is the surface finish? What is the size? What reliability do you want? What is stress concentration? Do you understand this? Now, my friend, let's understand stress concentration. This is very important to understand. Stress concentration, okay? So let's understand what is stress concentration. What is stress concentration? Very important topic. What is stress concentration? So let's understand this, okay? Stress concentration is a very important theory topic. You will get a lot of conceptual questions from stress concentration. So let's understand what is stress concentration. What is stress concentration? Okay. Let's say you have a metal plate. Let's say you have a metal plate and there is a hole in the metal plate. You are applying a load P. Okay. You are applying a load P. Okay. Now, my friend, what will be the stress in the cross section? Sigma equal to P by A, right? Sigma equal to P by A. This equation we have seen in case of strength of material. In case of strength of material, we have seen the equation of stresses P by A, My by I, Tr by J, right? These stresses which we calculate from the equation of strength of material, the stresses which we calculate from the equation of strength of material, they are known as nominal stress. We will denote it by sigma O. Sigma O is what? Nominal stress. Do you understand this much? We have different equations. Sigma equal to My by I. This is bending stress. This equation we also derived from strength of material. So this stress is also known as nominal stress. So what is nominal stress? Whatever stress you derived from strength of material. Okay. Now, my friend, this stress is derived on the basis of some assumption. When we found this formula sigma equals to P by A, we made some assumption. Okay. And what was that assumption? A very important assumption was there is no irregularity in the material. There is no irregularity in the material. For example, there is no hole in the material. There is no hole in the material. When this equation was derived, we did not consider any hole. Okay. So, when we derive this equation, we don't consider any irregularity in the material. And whatever stress we derive, it is called nominal stress. Now, my friend, let's say I need to find stress at this cross section. This is the minimum cross section, right? This is the minimum cross section. So let's cut it and let's draw the diagram. So this will be the diagram of the plate. If I cut it like this, okay, if I cut it from this, then this will be the diagram. Now, my friend, according to the assumption we made in strength of material, the stress from top to bottom should be equal, right? The stress from top to bottom should be equal. The stress from top to bottom should be equal. The axial stress from top to bottom should be equal. This will be sigma naught, this will be sigma naught. Okay, so this is the assumption we made in strength of material, that if there is axial stress, it will be constant from top to bottom, right? We saw this in strength of material. If there is axial stress, it is equal from top to bottom. But my friend, actually the stress will not be equal. Actually the stress will not be equal due to stress concentration. Now we will understand what is stress concentration. Now we will understand what is stress concentration. If there is any irregularity, if there is any irregularity in the material, then the stresses near the irregularity increases, and this is known as stress concentration. What is irregularity? For example, if there is a hole, then this is a irregularity. If there is a hole, then this is a irregularity. And what will happen near the irregularity? The stresses will increase, my friend. So the actual stresses will be like this. This will be sigma maximum. This will be sigma maximum. So if you are near the hole, the stresses will increase. Look at this. Near the hole, the stresses are increased. Away from the hole, the stresses are decreased. Near the hole, the stresses are increased. The stresses are more. Why? Because of stress concentration. If there is any irregularity, the stresses will increase near the irregularity, and that is known as stress concentration. So see, the stress is concentrated in this region. In this region near the hole, the stresses are concentrated. So this is known as stress concentration. Do you understand this? Now what is irregularities? What is irregularities? Examples of irregularities. Let's see examples of irregularity. For example, hole is an irregularity. Okay, so what are the examples of irregularities? Holes, grooves or threads. In case of bolts, etc., there are threads, right? So holes, grooves or threads, these are known as irregularity. Then abrupt change in area. Abrupt change or sudden change in area. For example, let's say this is your machine element. Look at this. From here to here the area is less, then it is suddenly changed. So near this region where the area is suddenly changed, there will be stress concentration. So abrupt change in area is also a type of irregularity. Abrupt change in material. For example, let's say we have a component, half of it is made of steel, half of it is made of aluminum. Here the material is abruptly changed. Abruptly it changed from steel to aluminum. So there will be stress concentration. Okay, or scratches on surface. I told you why due to scratches endurance strength reduces. I told you, I will explain it later. So why due to scratches endurance strength reduces? Because there will be stress concentration. Due to scratches there will be stress concentration, and stress concentration reduces endurance strength. Note this down, my friend. Stress concentration reduces endurance strength. Okay, stress concentration. If there is stress concentration, SE will reduce. If there is no hole, endurance strength will be more, and if you make a hole, endurance strength will be less. Do you understand this point? Stress concentration reduces the endurance strength of the machine element, my friend. Okay, so we have to see there is no stress concentration, but in some cases we can't do anything. If you have to make a hole, then there will be a hole and there will be stress concentration, and thus endurance strength will reduce, my friend. Now my friend, in order to find the actual endurance strength, what do you need? In order to find actual endurance strength, SE is equal to KA, KB, KC, KD into SE dash. Forget about KA, KB, KC. Let's only consider KD. Okay, forget about KA, KB, KC. Let's only consider KD. What is KD? Modified stress concentration factor. What is KD? Modified stress concentration factor. Okay, modified stress concentration factor, which is equal to 1 by Kf. So Se will be equal to Se dash divided by Kf. Now what is Kf, my friend? Fatigue stress concentration factor. Fatigue stress concentration factor. Fatigue stress concentration factor. Okay. So in order to find the actual value of Se, what do we need? We need Kd. And in order to find Kd, what do we need? We need Kf. Do you understand this? Do you understand this? In order to find Se, actual value of endurance strength, we need fatigue stress concentration factor. Okay, we need the value of Kf. Now, how do we find the value of Kf? That we need to understand. How Kf is found, that we need to understand, which is a very important point, my friend. How do we find fatigue stress concentration factor? If there is stress concentration, there will be stress concentration factor, and we need to find it. So how will we find Kf? Okay, so in order to find Kf, we need two things. In order to find Kf, we need two things. We need Kt and we need Q. Let's understand what is Kt and what is Q. Kt is known as theoretical stress concentration factor. Kt is known as theoretical stress concentration factor and Q is known as notch sensitivity factor. So do you understand what is Kt and what is Q? Kt is known as theoretical stress concentration factor and Q is known as notch sensitivity factor. So if you need Kf, first you need to find Kt and you need to find Q. If you know Kt and Q, then you can calculate the value of Kf. Now let's understand what is Kt and what is Q. What is Kt and what is Q? Okay, let's understand what is Kt and what is Q. Okay, let's understand Kt and Q, and then we will see, if you know Kt and Q, how you can find Kf. So let's understand Kt. Kt is what? Theoretical stress concentration factor. Kt is what? Theoretical stress concentration factor. Okay. Now how do we find Kt? How do we find Kt? In order to find Kt, in order to find theoretical stress concentration factor, what we will do? We will perform experiment. Okay. To find Kt, we perform experiments. For example, let's say you have plate with a hole. Let's say you have plate with a hole and you need to apply axial load. So you will perform experiment on this and you will find the value of Kt, and you will make a chart. You will make a graph like this. Let's say the diameter of the hole is D and width of the plate is W. So there are charts for Kt. There are charts for Kt for different value of D by W. For different value of D by W, there are charts of Kt like this. Okay. Let's say you have a shaft. Let's say you have a stepped shaft. Let's say you have a stepped shaft. Okay, which is subjected to torque. Let's say you have a stepped shaft. This diameter is small d. This diameter is capital D. Then for this also, there is a graph of Kt. Okay, there is a graph of Kt like this. So do you understand, my friend? For different shapes and for different loads, this is a plate with a hole. This is a shaft, circular shaft with different diameter. This is subjected to axial load. This is subjected to torque. So for different shape and for different loads, these types of graphs are plotted. Okay, so we have 15-20 graphs. You can see that in your book or in your design data booklet. Okay, in your design data booklet, you will find these graphs. So there are different graphs. We don't need to memorize these graphs. Okay, I'm just explaining how the value of KT is found. I'm just explaining, but you don't need to memorize these graphs. You will not need these graphs. Okay, in exam, if you need the value of KT, they will directly give you. Okay, so you don't have to memorize these graphs. I'm just explaining how the KT is found. So for different shapes and for different loads, there are graphs. How these graphs are plotted? By performing experiment. We performed experiment and we plotted these graphs. So from these graphs, we can find the value of KT, which is what? Theoretical stress concentration factor. Now why it is theoretical stress concentration factor? Why it is not actual stress concentration factor? Because when we perform the experiment, material of specimen, if you want to perform experiment, let's say you want to perform experiment on this, you will make this plate. Now this specimen has a different material. Okay, this specimen has a different material, and let's say the actual material is different. So this stress concentration factor that you calculated is not the actual value. So material of specimen is different from actual material. Let's say the actual material is steel. Let's say the actual material was steel, but this was not steel. The experiment performed was not on the steel. Okay, whatever experiment you performed, this specimen was not made of steel. So the actual material is not steel. So for this material, the factor is different, and for actual material, factor will be different. That's why this KT is not the actual factor. Do you understand this? Why it is called theoretical stress concentration factor? Because when we performed experiment to find these graphs, to plot these graphs, we performed experiment. That time we used a different material, and the actual material will be different. And the actual material can be steel, it can be aluminum, it can be cast iron, it can be anything, and for different material, actual factor will be different. So do you understand this point? Do you understand this point, my friend? Do you understand this point? Now, my friend, the KT can be found using these graphs, but there is one shape for which KT can be directly found from the formula. This shape. Let's say you have a plate with an elliptical hole. Let's say you have a plate with an elliptical hole. Let's say you have a plate. This is the plate and this is the elliptical hole, and it is subjected to axial load. For other shapes you need this graph, but for this case you can find the value of KT. You can find the value of KT directly from formula. Let's say this is the major axis of ellipse. This is the minor axis of ellipse. Let's say this value is A, this load is P, this value is A, and this value is, let's say, B. Okay, this distance is A, this distance is B. So the KT in this case is given by 1 plus 2A by B. KT is given by 1 plus 2A by B. Okay, so from this formula you can calculate the value of KT when there is a plate subjected to elliptical hole, my friend. Okay, and if A is equal to B, then what will be KT? If A is equal to B, then what will be KT? It will become equal to 3. In which case, my friend, if there is a circular hole, this is elliptical hole, A and B are different. If there is a circular hole, then what will be the value of KT? It will be equal to 3. Do you understand this? So in this case, you can find the value of KT directly from the formula. For other cases, you don't have the formula. You have to use the charts. You have to use the graphs. Okay. But for these cases, you can directly use this equation. Do you understand this? But these are not actual value of factor. These are only theoretical value. Why? because the actual material is different and these material which we use to find the charts were different. Now my friend, in order to find Kf, we need Kt, which is theoretical stress concentration factor, and we need one more thing. What is that one more thing? Q, which is known as notch sensitivity factor. Notch sensitivity factor. Now what is notch sensitivity factor? What is notch sensitivity factor? Let's understand this. What is notch sensitivity factor? Let's understand this, my friend. This is another very important concept. You will see theory question based on notch sensitivity factor. So what is notch sensitivity factor, my friend? See, for different material, the effect of stress concentration is different. Okay, effect of stress concentration, effect of stress concentration is different for different material, and it depends on the value of Q for material. Means, my friend, let's say you have steel and you have aluminum, then for both the material, effect of stress concentration will be different. Let's say the effect of stress concentration is more in steel and less in aluminum. Then on what factor it will depend? Which factor will decide that it will be more for steel and less for aluminum? That factor is notch sensitivity factor. Okay, so if effect is 0, then Q will be 0, and if effect is 100%, then Q will be equal to 1. So what is notch sensitivity factor, my friend? How effective is stress concentration for this material? If the stress concentration effect is 100%, then Q will be equal to 1. But if stress concentration effect is none, if there is no effect of stress concentration, it does not get affected by stress concentration, then Q will be equal to 0. So Q is like a property for the material which will decide what is the effect of stress concentration for that particular material. For different material, effect is different. For steel it will be different, for aluminum it will be different. In which case the effect will be more. If the value of Q is more, effect will be more. If the value of Q is less, effect will be less. Do you understand this? Now my friend, what is the equation of Q? It is given by this. Q is equal to Kf minus 1 divided by Kt minus 1. Okay, this is a very important equation. From this equation, you can find the value of Kf if you know the value of Q and if you know the value of Kt. Solve this equation. You will get this. Kf equals to 1 plus Q into Kt minus 1. 1 plus Q into Kt minus 1. Now my friend, put the value of Q and Kt and you will get the value of Kf. If you know the value of Q and if you know the value of Kt, then you can find the value of Kf. I told you, in order to find Kf, we need two things. We need Kt and we need Q. So Kt can be found using the graph and Q will depend upon the material. For different material, there is a value of Q. Okay, that is also given in design data book. For different material, there is different value of Q. That also you don't have to remember. Okay, you don't have to memorize that. Okay, so if we find the value of Kt from graph and if you know the value of Q for the material, then you can find the actual stress concentration factor. Do you understand this? Do you understand this? Do you understand this? Now my friend, for Q equals to 0, if you put Q equals to 0, what will be the value of Kf? If you put Q equals to 0, this thing will become 0, Kf will be equal to 1. And for Q equals to 1 means 100% sensitivity. For Q equals to 1, if you put Q equals to 1, this will become 1 plus Kt minus 1. 1 and 1 will be cancelled and you will get Kf equals to Kt. So Kf minimum is 1 and maximum is Kt. For Q equals to 0, it will be minimum. For Q equals to 1, it will be maximum. So Kt is between 0, Kf is between 0 and Kt, my friend. Okay, minimum value will be 0 if there is no sensitivity, no effect of stress concentration. 1. If there is no effect of stress concentration, Kf will be equal to 1. And if it is 100% sensitive, Kf will be equal to Kt, my friend. Okay, so do you understand this? How Kf is found and why we are calculating Kf? Why we are calculating Kf? Because if Kf is more, endurance strength will be less. Do you understand this? So we can find the value of Kf using these two values. We will calculate Kt from the graphs and we will find the value of Q for the material. For every material there is fixed value of Q. So if you know these two values, you can calculate Kf, and if you know Kf, you can calculate the actual stress concentration, actual endurance strength of the material. Do you understand this much? So my friend, we have seen today different concepts related to fluctuating load. We saw what is fluctuating stress, we saw what is repeated stress, what is completely reverse stress, we saw what is mean stress, what is stress amplitude. Then my friend, we saw how the material will fail under fluctuating load, what is fatigue failure, and we saw what is endurance strength. Endurance strength is the strength under fluctuating load, my friend. Okay, so these are the concepts related to fluctuating stress. In the next lecture we will see what is the design procedure. For example, in case of static load, how the design is performed using theories of failure. So in case of fluctuating load, what are the theories we use in order to design, that we will see in the next lecture, my friend. Okay, so this was all for today's lecture. Don't forget to hit the like button before leaving and share this video with all your friends. This is your duty, my friend. This is your YouTube channel. This is your duty. You need to support me. And my friend, whatever I am explaining here, this is just a trailer because we get very less time in YouTube for YouTube. So if you want to learn more from me, subscribe to Unacademy Plus. Unacademy Plus is India's #1 learning platform, my friend. Online learning where thousands of courses are there, thousands of lecturers are there, faculties are there. There are some top educators of India teaching for GATE and engineering services, and we have recently launched a batch for GATE and engineering services, my friend. So if you want to join that batch, join Unacademy Plus using my code. If you use this code, APPROVE10, if you use this code, what you will get, my friend? You will get a 10% discount. If you use this code, you will get a 10% discount. So if you want to join that batch of GATE and engineering services, we have just launched it. Please go and subscribe Unacademy Plus.